the Radio Forest Podcast.
Hey, Forrest, Don Barnes, 38 Special.
How are you?
Oh, man, we're all over the country. We're rocking and rolling, man. I just got home from the West Coast. I'm here at home for a brief time. I've got to fly to Kansas in a few hours, but just doing a radio tour.
You know, I used to live and work in Kansas, and one time I got to introduce you guys on stage. It was at a casino.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was at a casino. Probably would have been like, I don't know, maybe like 2008-ish. I don't know the dates.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I bumped into you guys backstage as you're getting ready because it was kind of a small backstage area. But you guys were just super polite and genuine, and it just was something I never got to say thank you. And it wasn't a scheduled meet and greet. You're just like, hey, thanks for doing this. And I was like, you guys rule, man.
Very nice. Thank you for that. We've always tried to leave a good experience for everybody, whether it's the caterers or the promoters, everybody that works security, everything. But, you leave a good experience for everybody. They want you back, So it's always been that kind of thing where we love everybody's support and everything they can do as we hit these cities. We're all a family. The crew is even our family. We go in there and make it happen and leave a good experience for everybody. I appreciate it, for us.
I feel like a lot of the bands, I don't want to say of your era, of your style, but I would say like 38 Special, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Tom Petty, the Allman Brothers, they kind of all have that same friendly family vibe going on. Was that definitely the scene coming up?
Yeah, it's kind of a Southern thing, It's that niceties and the hospitality of Southerners. There's still, we've got some grit behind it all, and we're competitive with each other and all that. As all through the years, everybody back in the 80s and 90s, we were trying to blow each other off the stage and be competitors. So after all this time, we've all become friends. We play with everybody: Styx, REO, ZZ Top, Loverboy, just you name it. But all these years later, when we see each other, it's like old home week. We all survived, and we have respect for each other for surviving. So when we go out and do tours with somebody like Kansas, first of all, they're great bunch of guys. A night full of hits, and we're doing 32 cities with them in celebration of this 50th anniversary. But couldn't be nicer. Co-headlining, and sometimes we close, and they do the support middle slot. We've got Jefferson Starship opening with a lot of hit songs. So it's always about the experience. Life's too short for any kind of negativity. We're just, all these years later, that desperation factor is gone. When bands first start out, they're pretty desperate. You're like, you please like us. We don't have anything to fall back on. Please buy the album, that kind of thing. This many years later, we're booked to over 100 cities every year. And that made it fun because you don't have a desperation thing. So recording Milestone, I said, the bottom line is let's just go have a good time. Let your parts evolve the way that I'm surrounded by legends and kings. These guys are all top musicians and everything. So, it was a fun thing to unfold it all and record. And we did it all at the same time, and turned the room mics up and made bombastic kind of live sound and everything. So the album is really diverse. All those songs are different. Each one is different from the next one. And if you didn't like that one, you'll like the next one. So it's all that, guitar banger attitude songs. And then you got some mid-tempo introspective songs. There's a beautiful ballad at the end that closes it out. But I just wanted to have a little something for everybody,
Now, you recorded this at Reel to Reel Studios, and that's Will Turpin from Collective Soul.
Yeah.
You've been friends with those guys forever. Did you record there because of the friendship, or was that just also like a secondary bonus?
No, it was. We've been friends with those guys. Will, especially, is a personal friend of mine, and his dad had that studio for the last 30 years, and his dad passed away, and of course left him the studio. Will upgraded it and put all kind of new technology, Pro Tools, 3 different rooms, beautiful studio. And he said, man, just come on, because near the airport, in the Atlanta airport. So I got all these guys, they live in Florida and everything. Everybody comes from different places. But he said, just come cut tracks. I'll give you a good budget, discount and all that. I said, man, So we went in there and it was great. We had fun. Will dropped by and we just hung out for a while. So it's just one of those things. It just kind of organically grew out of that. And, and I love the fact that it was his dad's studio. And we actually had a little bit of business back in the 80s with his dad. And so he's got a little picture of us with his dad up on the wall. So that's really sweet, So it all worked out.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, I talked to Randy Bachman from BTO and the Guess Who. Now, what was his involvement on Milestone? Did he co-write a song with you guys, that Long, Long Train song?
Yeah, he and I got together. I found myself in Nashville one day, and my publisher said, Randy Bachman's in town. Would you like to spend the day with him and see what you can, write? And I said, absolutely. I would love that. I'm a big fan of his. And he's, you probably know him. He's a lot of stories. He's a motor mouth. He's got stories from 60 years ago.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so we sat down, we put this song, Long, Long Train, together, and it was kind of a social commentary song that something we had never done before. And you want to keep something like that vague, and we didn't want to pinpoint anything or name names, because then you got a protest song, and nobody wants that. So we just kind of turned it into how the world is today, and what are we leaving in the children, and that kind of thing. So, but it was fun to write with him. Real haunting chords. I started out playing piano, and I transposed it over to guitar. But I told him, I said that he was part of a real pivotal moment in my life, and he wanted to know that story. I said, I'd played all his songs, Guess Who, from high school, teen dances and all that back in those days. And I told him, I said, around the early 70s, I was landscaping. I was a young married man, 20 years old, had a baby. That baby's almost as old as I am now, so... I told him, I said, I'm in Florida. I was in a landscaping company. I was digging palm tree holes. There's a lot of palm trees in Florida. So you got to dig a hole 5 foot wide, 5 foot deep. And so they bring the fully grown tree with a root ball, and they put it down in this hole, And I told him, I was down in this hole pushing the idiot stick, digging the dirt, and the radio was playing on the truck there right next to it. And I heard the opening guitar figure of Taking Care of Business. And I heard this blump, dun, da, 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 dun, And I told him, I said, I'm down in this heat and in this hole, and I'm thinking, man, I can play that right there. That guy's on the radio. I can play that intro. I can do that. And I thought that at that moment, I said, I got to literally get myself up out of this hole and get to work, And so I told him he was a big part of the influence of all that. He loved that story. And it's funny how, life dishes it out. All these decades later, I'm sitting face to face with the guy writing a song with him. Same guy from the palm tree hole.
Wow, that's awesome. Were you?
Yeah.
Were you already playing guitar at that time? Because you said I could play that. So were you already kind of like a struggling musician, but you got to support your family?
Yeah. I'd played guitar since like sixth grade, so I was pretty accomplished. Like I said, I played in teen club bands and dance bands through the teen years and all that. So I was playing Guess Who songs, Shaking All Over, American Woman, all those early Guess Who songs. And he was flattered by that. I said, man, I played your songs and so many of them. And I came from Jacksonville, Florida, so that was a Navy town. And we had the opportunity, all of us from every band that came out of the area, we played sailors clubs at 16 years old. You're playing cover songs, the hit songs of the day. And these sailors is like the Liverpool of the South. All these ships would come in. The sailors are on leave, and they go find their enlisted men's clubs, and they got a little band. We were playing the hits of the day, And, we'd watch them drink and fight. We're all underage playing cover songs. But the thing about that, I'm talking about Dwayne Allman, Greg Allman. We all, Ronnie Van Zant, everybody played these sailors clubs at a young age. And you didn't realize in those early years you were absorbing the foundation and the fundamentals of songwriting. You learned how the craft goes. Every song you rehearse, you see where the payoff is, and you start seeing the pattern of pre-chorus, and then you got a chorus and a bridge and an outro and all this thing. And so you start seeing how it was done. And then you get a little cocky and you start thinking, well, I can write my own songs now. And that's when you go starve for the next 10 years. So it's not something I highly recommend. But we did learn those foundational things at an early age.
How is Donnie Van Zant doing? I mean, he obviously had to step away from the band. And as far as I could tell, he's pretty much done with music. I know he's done some stuff with his brother. Can you tell me real quick about him stepping away from the group and how you guys moved through that? Yeah,
he's doing great now. He had inner ear nerve damage. He was actually, I don't mean to sound graphic here, but he had some blood coming out of his ears after all 40 years of it, and he was out on the road and he didn't know what was going on, and he went to the Mayo Clinic and they gave him these macro MRIs, and they read in the Riot Act. They said, you've got very few nerve fibers in your ears. And if you continue being around all this loudness, anything like you're out there with generators, you're out with snare drums popping, you have big guitars and cymbals and all that. And they told him, they said, if you continue doing this, you're going to be absolutely stone deaf, and there's nothing we can do for you. And he was, of course, I've known him since 14. He's been my brother all these years, all these bands. And so it was a real emotional time. I wrote him a long letter and just how much I appreciated his spirit. And I needed that spirit all these years. And we still own the trademark together. He gets a licensing fee every year for our touring and everything. But, he was busy doing the gospel record with his brother. But he's doing great. He hears better than he ever heard. He's got his $10,000 hearing aids in his ear. I just talked to him yesterday, actually. I thank you for asking about him. He's great. He's doing fine. And, like I said, he just had to leave the road. And unfortunately, he had told me many years ago, he suggested that I try to sing some songs. So, we had 2 failed albums that didn't work, and he had more of an earthy, bluesy voice that wasn't so accessible to radio. And he said, why don't you try to sing a few of them? So, it turned out that radio, it was more, they liked it. It was a more commercial sounding voice. And it didn't matter who carried the ball as long as we won as a team, So we were always been a team all these years, and he's always been supportive. So we're still a team, So we talk quite a bit, and he, like I said, he was busy. I would have him write some things on this album, but he was busy with his brother. They did a big gospel album. They're real happy about that. So, but yeah, thanks for asking about it. He's doing great. I'll send him your best.
Now, when I talked to Johnny, he had told me about the day Ronnie had passed away. He said he was at home doing yard work with his dad, and the phone's ringing. His dad's like, hey, go grab that phone and see what's going on. So that's how he had found out about Ronnie Van Zant and the plane crash.
Yeah.
Where were you in 77 when that happened?
Well, this is very close. Johnny was a little kid. He was basically 14, 15 years old. We were in a rehearsal down there in downtown Jacksonville, and we were rehearsing a song, and a couple of our crew guys came in. They were ashen-faced, and one of them pulled Donnie out of the room and went to talk to him. And Dennis, the other guy, I said, what happened? He goes, oh, Skynyrd's plane crashing. Oh, well, everybody's, you're kind of in denial at the time, and you think, well, everybody's okay, right? He goes, no, it was a plane crash. It's like, that plane crashed. So I went to, of course, we stopped everything. I went straight to Donnie's house. He had to stay with his mother. And Donnie asked me to fly out with his dad on this little small private plane to get out there to the Macomb, Mississippi airport. I was to be coordinating the cars and transportation and visiting hospitals and things. So all the way there, Lacey is his dad's name, Lacey. He was in denial. He kept saying, my son is not gone. I just can feel it. I know he's not gone. And they've made a mistake because it was all in the dark out there. The sheriffs and the county people were out there trying to rescue him and get him in the hospital. They went to 3 different hospitals. But the tragic thing was, I knew his dad was in denial. So when we landed there in this little small private airport, I was in the gatehouse there trying to coordinate cars picking us up and everything. And Lacey came in and said, where are we going first, Don? And I said, well, Lacey, we've got to go to the mortuary first. And that was when he found out, he knew, and then he just fell to the ground. And it was a real personal experience for me to go there and see Ronnie. He wasn't banged up or anything. He looked really good. Donnie asked me years later. He had a broken leg, and his head was behind his ear. They had puttied up his head. He had hit something. And other than that, I told Donnie, I said he looked really good and handsome. He'd been working out, but it was one of those things that had never left me. I still grieve to this day that all that happened. And there was a time when I was 19 years old, and I was playing in another band with Donnie before 38 Special. And my amp had blown up, and I didn't have any money. I was in poverty and married with a kid, And Donnie had gone to Ronnie and said, can you help him out? Because we had a band together. I didn't have any equipment, and the thing had blown up, just smoke coming out of the back of the thing. Ronnie Van Zant met me downtown at a music store, and he co-signed a loan for an amplifier for me. And I was, of course, intimidated by his presence. He was about 5 years older than us, but he signed it. And I still got the little loan agreement. Ronald Wayne Van Zant, his signature on it. And so I had to pay him back. You know, it was all those things. I had to pay back his wife and work and pay the payments on it. But as I'm standing there in the funeral home over him, something came over me. It was an epiphany. And I thought, this guy is lifeless now, and he helped me. And maybe at that point I'd been given like 80%. But from then on, buddy, it's 110%. We're going to do it for him. And there were several albums. We dedicated the albums to the spirit and the persona of Ronnie Van Zant. So, you know, it's been a personal thing for me. Johnny was very young, but with Donnie and I, you know, he stayed with his mother and he wanted me to go with his dad. So that experience, I wanted to say also, you know, as we're in the funeral home, we had to go visit the other band members who were all broken up in traction and stitches and everything. And on the way there, Lacey told me, he said, when you get in front of Gary and Alan and all these people, don't say anything about Ronnie. That, you know, he said, as far as you know, Ronnie is fine. So he would stand over these guys and they'd mumble through, you know, their jaws wired shut and all that. It'd been a plane crash, you know. So he said, they'd ask, first thing he'd say, how's Ronnie doing? And he'd say, you just get better, buddy. Ronnie's doing fine and all that. And I saw the strength of a man. I'd never seen somebody that had just left the funeral home and looked at his dead son and cried over him, and then be over there and have that kind of strength. That's the Van Zant strength. That's the character of those people. So it really made a big impact on me. But I told him many years later, I said, Lacey, I know that you and I had that personal experience. So I just want to let you know, I'd never seen the strength of a man to stand over other people and tell them that his son was okay, you know. So, but you know, we dedicated everything to him. We went forward in his name and his spirit. So we're 50 years later. Here we are. It took all that time and all that journey, but we still remember. And he was a big influence and a major mentor for the band. Yeah.
Tell me what it felt like to be the 13th band to be played on MTV. That's pretty big in hindsight. Was it big at the time?
Not really. It was just this odd cable channel that you know, we weren't quite ready for prime time. We looked like a bunch of bridge trolls up there with 3 feet of hair and all that stuff. But my manager said, we were out in Denver. We were playing in the Rainbow Music Hall, and he said, there's a cable channel that would like to, first of all, let me just say, that MTV didn't have any content to air. They'd have enough content, so they'd have to send their own camera crew out to film live shows around the country. And he said, this new cable channel wants to send 3 camera guys out to film your show. Is that okay with you? I said, what they call it, MTV? I'm like, what, some cable channel? Sure, I don't care if they want to come do it, you know. So they came out and they filmed the show, and the guy had me stand in front of the camera reading a card. He wanted me to do a little spot for MTV, and it said, you're watching MTV, you'll never hear music the same way again. And I remember saying that slogan. I'm thinking, what a weird little slogan it was. And in hindsight, I guess I should have bought stock in the company because it went crazy, you know. But, yeah, we were the 13th video on MTV, and, you know, it was a special thing to see. You'd be over at a friend's house. Everybody had the MTV on, and there we were, you know. So time was never on our side. It was always a day late and dollar short. But that was one time that timing did work for us. So we did get a lot of exposure from that, you know. So, but it's still the hair and all that. We still cringe when we see all those hairstyles back then.
50th anniversary, first in music in over 20 years. Don Barnes, 38 special, Milestone, out now. Don, hey man, thank you for the excellent chat today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Forrest, for having me on. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for making us a part of their lives all these years. It means so much to us, and, you know, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. We'll always remember that. Thanks for having me on, bud.